FileHandler automatically converts SASS files and compiles them into CSS. SASS is an extension of CSS that gives you more features, and particularly you can use variables, for example. And this allows us to create themes and templates that are far more flexible. FileHandler will compile these on the fly. So let's take a look at how it works. FileHandler will take any SCSS or SAS extension and compile those into CSS. So let's create an example. This is a file that's valid SCSS but not CSS. What it does is defines a variable called color that's red by default. And what that means is it's possible for something external to override it. And it defines the body to have a background color, which is a lighter version of color itself by 40%. Now, let's see how this works. We will create a new file. We'll call this style.scss. And inside this, we'll put in the contents that we just copied. Now, let's go render this style.scss. Out here, say /style.scss, and that's compiled the file and is rendering something somewhat different from what we typed. It says body background color colon hash FCC, which is a lighter version of red. Let's include this in our homepage, and let's say link rel equals style sheet. href is equal to style.scss, the local style sheet that we have, and reload the page. Now we have a slightly pinkish version of the page. Another thing about this is that the variables that we define, so for example, we defined the variable color here, that can be overridden by URL query parameters. So I could say question mark color equals, let's say, blue. Now, instead of hash FCC, that recompiles into hash CCF, which is a light version of blue. Let's test that out. In the page, instead of linking to style.scss, we'll say color equals blue. And now it should have the background appear as, well, let's reload it. The background should appear as a bluish shade. Yeah. Now let's change this to green. And now when I reload it, it recompiles and becomes a lighter shade of green. This allows us to create a variety of different themes that can be controlled purely using the URL, and also to create standard color schemes, but not just color schemes, but pretty much any kind of styling. By default, this is enabled in the file handler using a kwarg saying SASS colon and a list of file extensions that should be compiled into SASS. If you create your own file handler that deals with a file, you need to add this. For example, let's take this gramex.yaml. Let's say we create our own file handler. We'll call it SASS, and the pattern is, let's say, slash style.css. So when we call style.css, it should use the handler, file handler, and the kwargs are the path we want is style.scss. Now, if we just put in this, it's going to serve style.css as the same as style.scss. Let's verify that. Slash style.css. And that is literally the same as what we had typed in, not compiled into SASS. So to do that, we need an extra step. We say SASS colon star.scss, or you could specify style.scss. You can specify any file name or wildcard, and then it starts getting compiled into SASS. With this, we can pretend that the URL style.css is like a CSS file. We don't even have to specify the SCSS extension, and all of the query parameters that we used will still work. So if I go back to the home page, this renders using style.css rather than style.scss. In summary, if you use a SASS file, then FileHandler can auto-compile this for you. If you use it in your own FileHandler, make sure you remember to enable SASS colon and then the set of file extensions you want to enable.